And that those people that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that actually do.
On October 5, 2011, the world lost a genius. A visionary. The man who put 1,000 songs in your pocket, changed the way we communicate, and built Apple into the biggest tech empire in history. But in his final days, Steve Jobs wasn't just a man fighting cancer, he was still shaping Apple's future. Behind closed doors, in secret meetings, and through his last emails, Jobs made final moves that would change Apple forever. What really happened in those last moments? What was Steve Jobs' final vision for Apple? And what warning did he leave behind? The Apple campus is bathed in golden sunlight. Employees move quickly through the glass-walled halls, unaware that history is about to change. The writing was on the wall. Steve Jobs had been battling pancreatic cancer for years. His appearances had become rare. His voice, once booming and full of energy, was growing weaker. And yet he fought on. This wasn't just any day. This was the day Steve Jobs would step down as CEO of Apple. A decision he never wanted to make. A decision that marked the end of an era. Inside an Apple boardroom, the air is thick with tension. Tim Cook sits across from Steve Jobs. The room is silent. Steve Jobs had made his decision. Tim Cook would be the next CEO, but before he left, Jobs had something to say. Something that would shape Apple for years to come.
I've known for a while that Steve Sass' health was declining, but that day there was a different feeling in the air. He looked at me with an intensity I still never forget, and then he said it.
When asked what I would do, just do what is right.
At first, the words seemed simple. But in them was a deeper meaning, a warning, a challenge, and a responsibility. Two leaders, two visions. Steve Jobs is a visionary, a perfectionist, an artist in technology. His products weren't just tools, they were experiences. He obsessed over every curve, every color, every interaction. Tim Cook is a master of operations, a numbers man. He had transformed Apple's supply chain, making it one of the most efficient in the world. He wasn't an artist, but he knew how to run a global empire.
When I unlock my iPhone, because I can arrange my apps and widgets to frame it perfectly, even off to the side.
Springpad for taking notes, Google Reader for reading RSS feeds, Mint.com, and on the last screen I have more gimmicky apps like Shazam and games like NES.
An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it?
When that time other phone also had a browser, but pages were compressed and not full desktop versions. iPhone is the first phone with a full desktop class web browser, Safari.
And we are calling it iPhone. What's wrong with their user interface?
iPhone is the first phone with a fully touchscreen interface, no physical keyboard.
And they all have these control buttons that are fixed in plastic. Well, how do you solve this? Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen.
Steve Jobs had built Apple on bold, risky ideas. Tim Cook would turn it into a machine of efficiency, and that was exactly what worried Jobs. Steve Jobs leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He takes a deep breath before speaking again.
Apple must never become just another company. It must never be about money. It has to be about passion, about art, about pushing humanity forward.
Tim Cook, listening, nodding. Jobs feared that, without him, Apple might lose its soul. That it might prioritize profits over innovation. That it might stop taking risks.
What? Well, sure, Apple, think different, but
times have changed.
iPhone 16e
He's not a good phone. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet.
Did Apple listen to his warning? Or did they become exactly what he feared? The boardroom again. Tim Cook finally speaks.
I will do what is right.
Steve Jobs gives a small nod. The meeting is over. One era has ended. In his last months, Steve Jobs wasn't obsessed with a new iPhone or an iPad. His final project was something far bigger. Apple Park. The billion-dollar headquarters, Steve Jobs' last masterpiece. This footage is Cupertino City Hall on June 7, 2011. Steve Jobs, thinner than before but still sharp, speaking with
It
confidence.
puts 12,000 people in one building. I mean, think about that. That's rather odd. 12,000 people in a building.
Apple Park, Apple's headquarters, is located in Cupertino, California. Covering approximately 176 acres, four-story circular structure, 2.8 million square feet, capable of accommodating 12,000 employees. Rooftop solar panels generate up to 75% of daytime energy needs. Jobs had always believed that architecture could shape creativity. At Pixar, he designed a campus that forced animators, designers, and writers to cross paths, fostering unexpected collaborations. Apple Park was built with the same philosophy. Even as his health faded, Steve Jobs was still designing the future. And this was his final gift to Apple. Steve Jobs wrote an email, not to Tim Cook, not to Johnny Ive, not to anyone at Apple. He wrote it to himself. It wasn't about business, it wasn't about Apple, it was about life. He had built the most valuable company in the world. He had changed technology forever, and yet, in his final reflections, he wasn't thinking about success. He was thinking about something much deeper. I grow little of the food I eat, and of the little I do grow, I did not breed or perfect the seeds. I do not make my own clothing. I speak a language I did not invent or refine. I did not discover the mathematics I use. I am protected by freedoms and laws I did not conceive of or legislate, and do not enforce and adjudicate. I am moved by music I did not create myself. When I needed medical attention, I was helpless to help myself survive. I did not invent the transistor, the microprocessor, object-oriented programming, or most of the technology one works with. I love and admire my species, living and dead, and am totally dependent on them for my life and well-being. That email. It showed how deeply Steve was thinking about the world. He knew his time was limited, but he wasn't bitter, he was grateful. August 24, 2011, Jobs resigned as CEO of Apple, transitioning to chairman of the board, and entrusted Tim Cook with the role of CEO. Under his guidance, Apple revolutionized technology, introducing products that became integral to modern life. In his final days, Jobs found solace in the company of his family. He passed away peacefully at his Palo Alto home on October 5, 2011, surrounded by loved ones.
Steve, we will miss you forever. And we will honor you in your memory.
Employees gathering to remember Jobs, sharing stories of his impact. News outlets worldwide flooded their broadcasts with reports on Steve Jobs' passing. Newspapers, TV channels, and online media all paid tribute, highlighting his impact on technology and culture.
iPods, iPhones.
He was our Edison, our Disney, our Da Vinci. Yes, Steve Jobs was the most successful businessman of our generation, but deep down, he was an artist who worked in metal and glass, plastic and pixels.
And we are calling it iPhone.
And we call it the iPad.
This is the new MacBook Air, and you can get a feel for how thin it is. Yeah, there it is.
If you love deep dive stories about tech and innovation, make sure to subscribe this channel. If you think Steve Jobs is a genius, hit the like button. How do you think about Apple future? Comment below. Under Tim Cook, Apple became more profitable than ever. But critics argue it lost its edge. Jobs focused on insanely great products. Now, Apple is a business empire. At the D8 conference, Jobs discussed Apple's approach to innovation, emphasizing that the company focuses on creating products that customers will want, even before they realize they want them.
We don't think this is part of what makes a great product. We're going to leave it out. Some people are going to not like that. They're going to call us names. It's not going to be in certain companies' vested interests that we do that, but we're going to take the heat because we want to make the best product in the world for customers. And we're going to instead focus our energy on these technologies, which we think are in their ascendancy and we think are going to be the right technologies for customers. And you know what? They're paying us to make those choices. That's what a lot of customers pay us to do, is to try to make the best products we can. And if we succeed, they'll buy them. And if we don't, they won't. And it'll all work itself out.
Did you know before he built the iPhone, he was fired from his company he built? I have read this book. It unveils many untold stories about Steve. If you are interested about Steve's journey, can get from the link below.